Hi guys, welcome to the Wrestling Retrospective, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a review of AEW Double or Nothing 2025. The show started off with the final of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament, where Mercedes Moné defeated Jamie Hayter to win a title shot at Toni Storm, or the Women's World Championship, I guess, but you guys should know what the result is of the Toni Storm match. At All In. For me, this was a very good match to start the show. Hayter looked hella strong in defeat. She took a mountain of abuse, especially to the back of the head. That seemed to be like the main target of Mercedes Moné's offense. It seemed like not on purpose either. It was just she was landing on her head a lot. The final roll-up was absolutely brutal, though. The way that she actually did just plant her straight on the top of her head was awful. And the way that she as in Mercedes Moné, ran up the ramp immediately to the top of the entrance. Kind of said it all. You could tell this was kind of Mercedes' kind of, I don't think, most difficult match since Chris Statlander at the end of last year. The meteor to the outside was awful. What I do like about Mercedes Moné is that the complete, I don't know how to put it, in big matches, she'll constantly go for pins when it makes sense to. So, it's not after a clothesline or a drop kick, but if there's a move that looks particularly bad to take, she'll go for a pin straight away no matter what, which is something I like about her because she's consistent with it in big matches like the matches against Statlander, the match against Julia Hart. She did a similar thing. Also, Moné was putting over the strong, Hayter as a strong opponent really well. The fact that she did 3 backstabbers before going for the bank statement, I thought kind of, again, really helped out Jamie Hayter in defeat. Jamie Hayter using the tombstone as a transitional move is still kind of weird to me. I'm so used to it being such a protected move like with The Undertaker, that for someone to be doing it, I think it was done twice during the show, that the tombstone was used as just kind of one that was a pin and then a kick out, which, back in the early 2000s would be insane. I am looking forward to Moné challenging for the AEW World Championship at All In. I feel like the match between her and Toni is going to be an absolute banger. Following that, we had FTR defeat Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Garcia, and this match was decent. It's hard for FTR to kind of have a bad tag team match, to be fair. They're such a good tag team overall that, they have to be pretty bad opponents to have a lackluster tag team match for them. Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Garcia worked okay as a team. You can tell that, they'd only been teaming and kind of, I assume, doing training as a team for only a few weeks. FTR played to their strengths really well. The final sequence made perfect sense with Daniel Garcia taking the pile driver and being in the sharpshooter for a very long time, though he showed a lot of resiliency throughout the match. He was also the guy that they targeted to kind of cut the ring in half. So Garcia kind of took the majority of the offense, which makes perfect sense with the kind of part-time wrestling that Nigel does. And kind of a lot of things just made sense with this one. And it put FTR over as bigger heels. And I was very surprised not to see any sign of Adam Copeland here. I would have thought that would have been a guarantee at the end of the match, but it wasn't the case. And the right team won. FTR needed the win more than Garcia and Nigel McGuinness. I assume that when Copeland does come back, which I assume will be before All In, he will either team with Garcia or team with somebody else. FTR looked great coming out of this one. After that, we had a stretcher match where Ricochet defeated Mark Briscoe, and this is something how it made pay-per-view, I have absolutely no idea, but I digress. The right guy won, in my opinion. Ricochet needed the win more than Briscoe did. I feel like Ricochet's going to have a decent match at All In, I assume, with it being a year since he debuted, or just under a year, I believe. I feel like he'll have something decent, maybe a championship match, but I'm not sure who against. But just like Toni Storm, Mark Briscoe does not half-arse bleeding. He bled everywhere. The little, they showed a bit where it was just the scissors that Ricochet uses and just a puddle of multiple puddles of which belonged to Mark Briscoe. It was a particularly brutal match, which I was very surprised about. I'm surprised there was any blood at all during this match, just because of Anarchy in the Arena coming up. I said it was absolutely pouring blood, let alone pissing blood. The shooting star press from the apron onto the stretcher looked particularly bad, especially with the way that Ricochet landed afterwards on the floor. Briscoe cleaning Ricochet's head was particularly funny. I feel like that worked really well. I like the way that they worked the bold stuff into nearly every match that Ricochet has. But yeah, as I said, Ricochet needed a win here. It was a fine match for what it was. Was it pay-per-view worthy? No, but it doesn't help when you put everyone who could be having separate matches in Anarchy in the arena. So yeah, it served a purpose, and its purpose was to get Ricochet over, and I feel like it worked. So yes, it was fine, but nothing particularly special. After that, the Hurt Syndicate defeated Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes. I keep saying the Hurt Syndicate, and it's like really annoying me. But yeah, they retained the World Tag Team Championships in a match that kind of went exactly how I expected it to. They dominated for the most part. It was kind of the weakest match of the show as of like that point. MJF's involvement felt very unnecessary. He didn't need to be getting involved at all. I'm thoroughly convinced that Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin could take Dustin and Sammy quite convincingly, but it all adds into the story of the Hurt Syndicate and how there's cracks within the group at the minute, because MJF is the newest member and he's kind of more outspoken than the rest of the group, apart from maybe MVP. But yeah, we'll see where this ends up. It wouldn't shock me if the MJF thing doesn't last in the Hurt Syndicate and it ends up being a match between him and Bobby Lashley at some point. But yeah, the titles were never in jeopardy here, which kind of took away from the match. It was an easy defense for the Hurt Syndicate, and yeah, it was just a way to get them on the pay-per-view, I think, really. Following that, we had Kazuchika Okada retain the Continental Championship against Speedball Mike Bailey in what was a great match, but it was always going to be between these two. I feel like these are two of the better people on the roster as far as wrestling bell to bell goes. They complemented each other really well. Okada does the slow, methodical place with outbursts of energy really well, which, you know, he only does the outburst energy when necessarily, not when it's needed, only when it's necessary, which I think works really well for him, as I've not seen a mass amount of his New Japan matches, so I assume he was doing the same in Japan. But going against the speed and quickness of Speedball Mike Bailey worked really well here. Both are absolutely lethal strikers. The first half of the match kind of belonged to Okada, whereas the second half of the match kind of was more in Speedball's favour before the finish. And yeah, I feel like Bailey has kind of been the closest to defeat Okada. I know at one point I think this was the match where a 3 count was made, but Okada got his hand or foot onto the ropes before the 3 count was made, so the match had to carry on. But yeah, no, this just worked really well. The drop kick in midair to set up for the Rainmaker was really good by Okada. I feel like Speedball always takes a bit too long going for the double knees shooting star press. I assume he probably has a name for it. But yeah, to get his balance, and then he does that, and then he does the move. I feel like it's just too much wasting time, in my opinion. It's one of the things that really bugs me about Speedball, is that he does the fist into his hand way too often. And yeah, I feel like he went for the spinning heel tick just way too many times, especially near the end when they kind of just hitting finishes. But yeah, I said it was a great match. The finish could have been a little bit better, as far as setting up towards the final moments. But yeah, other than that kind of nitpicking for me, yeah, it was very good. After that, Toni Storm retained the AEW Women's World Championship against Mina Shirakawa. And yeah, this was a solid match. Not as good as their Forbidden Door match in my opinion, but it was still good. Mina targeted the hurt leg really well throughout the match and would not let up on it at all. Especially in the first half of the match, she was just on it and on it, on it, constantly going for figure four leg locks and stuff on the outside, which I think helped the development of the match really well. But yeah, one thing Storm is really good at is putting her opponents over during matches. I know that she ends up winning in the end, but with Megan Bain, with Mina here, Deonna Purrazzo at Revolution when they face each other, she's just good at taking a lot of offense, making opponents look really good in defeat. And again, this was another kind of example of that, where Mina looked very, very good coming out, even though she lost. But yeah, these two have really good chemistry as well, which you can kind of tell that they worked on when Tony went over to Japan and during their lead up to Forbidden Door last year. The comedy parts to the brawling parts worked really well. They were timed perfectly throughout, so then you could have that bit of fun to a very kind of serious match. The funniest moment of it all came after the match, though, where they went for the kiss. And if you're watching Battleground at the same time like I was, Joe Hendry was making his entrance, and of course with Joe Hendry's entrance you do clap during the entrance, so it kind of looked like from a certain perspective that people are clapping for them to kiss, which I found kind of funny. But yeah, Storm winning made a lot of sense here. I couldn't see her dropping the title to Mina Shirakawa, and I very, very much look forward to seeing Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné, as they have never met before. They never met in WWE. I think they did some tag team matches together, but never one-on-one have we seen Storm versus Moné, and it's a dream match that I'm very much looking forward to at All In. So following that, we had Anarchy in the arena, where Team Babyface, which was Swerve, Omega, The Ops, and Willow Nightingale, and defeated the Death Riders and the Young Bucks. We also saw involvement from Gabe Kidd, Hook, Mark Briscoe as well, which I was very confused about, but we'll get to it. But for me, I'm not going to try and analyze this from a pro wrestling perspective. I'm going to read out some of my highlights that I've got written on my notes, and then kind of give my overall thoughts at the end. So I liked how Samoa Joe out-Death Ridered the Death Riders. I thought that was very smart to start the match. The first music change was kind of funny when they were playing I'm So Excited, and then when they hit bodies, I thought it added to the match even more, and it just gave a great atmosphere to the match watching it at home. The Death Rider fight was predominantly in the crowd to start with, which made perfect sense as they always come out the crowd, and it was only Moxley who moved to ringside eventually until the rest of them joined him. For me, the women didn't get shown enough to start the match. They came in when they were at ringside, obviously you were shown a lot more, and they were interacting with the guys a lot more. But yeah, for the start of the match, they were kind of out in the parking lot, and we didn't get to see a lot of them. Though it did make me kind of laugh that they were... They kind of had this part of the match where they were outside, and one of the product placements was an oven tray and a frying pan, which is obviously the kind of joke of women being in the kitchen. I found that quite funny, even if it was completely by accident. It did make me chuckle. I was surprised how much in sync Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland were. It seemed like they'd been tagging for ages. Everything they were doing was completely synchronized. It worked really well. I would argue that Swerve and Omega were the MVPs of the match. They're obviously the two that kind of took out the Bucks to end the match. I feel like they worked really well and kind of controlled the match from the ring aspect. From the ring aspect, we saw the return of Hook, who really didn't offer a lot in this one. I think he took out somebody with a golf club and that was it. But it does make sense because, he got replaced by Hobbs, who is now part of the Ops and the Trios champions with the Ops, and he kind of took Hook's place. So I assume that's the story we're going to tell, even though it's a little bit petty. But, we'll have to see how it plays out. Hobbs, speaking of, took a ton of offense here. Most of the time it was Hobbs who was being thrown around, or he got stabbed with the forks. He was the first person to bleed, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he kind of took the brunt of the offense from the Death Riders. Probably the biggest shock of the entire show was the fact that Moxley didn't bleed at all during this, which was very surprising. Willow being attached to the ring via a chain and locked through the ear hole was grim. It reminded me very much of Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy. But yeah, anything like that always makes me cringe. The table spot with the double stomp on the top rope onto Kenny Omega from the Bucks and then powerbomb through the table was slick as anything and worked so well. The intergender stuff I thought was good as well. I'm glad that they did the intergender stuff, obviously with only two women being in the match. It made sense that the guys kind of got interacted with them. We've seen Marina Shafir get taken out by guys before. We've seen Moxley take out Willow Nightingale. It made perfect sense, and I'm glad that they weren't kind of taking a step back away from that because of how a particular amount of people might feel about it, even though in a genuine fight that wouldn't just happen. The guys had just attacked the girls. The multiple chokeholds moment I thought was really good, worked really well, and glad it wasn't the end of the match. I was a bit worried at one point that was going to be it, one of them would pass out and then that would be done for the match. The staple gun stuff will never not make me cringe, especially when Matt Jackson got stapled in the dick, and then Swerve got stapled in the tongue, which I was cringing for quite a while longer than the rest of them. Gabe Kidd got involved, but then Mark Briscoe was the equalizer, which I was very surprised about. I assume Eddie's not okay to return yet, which is why they brought in Mark Briscoe, who was still covered in blood, by the way. It's been 2 hours, an hour and a half since we last saw Mark Briscoe, and he was bleeding out at that point. He hasn't got changed or anything. His face is covered in blood, and he's got reopened again during this match. It was nuts. Very smart play from Team Babyface, predominantly being the Ops and Willow Nightingale trapping the Death Riders in the ambulance. I thought that was a very innovative and funny way to get rid of them. And yeah, the Bucks got absolutely fucked up to finish, with Kenny putting, I believe, Nicholas through the exploding table. And then, though I would have preferred to see the house call, Swerve Strickland brought out one of his new trainers that he's got recently with all thumbtacks stuck to the bottom of it, similar to how the Bucks did to the Lucha Bros in the Steel Cage match at All Out. And yeah, we saw Swerve stomp. As I said, I feel like a house call would have been even worse if he'd gone for that. With, if you want to see thumbtacks in the trainers. But yeah, for me, I absolutely love this match. Whenever I get Anarchy in the arena, I feel like it's fantastic, even if like maybe on a rewatch it isn't as good. In the moment, they are a lot of fun to watch, and you can't really get it wrong in the moment. Yeah, for me, it was close. Like, it was a second best match of the night. For me, the main event was match of the night, in my opinion. But yeah, this like lived up to what it should have been, and I do wonder if they're going to do Blood and Guts this year, whether the teams will be very similar to what they are here. But yeah, as I said, it was just a whole lot of fun, a whole lot of bullshit, and yeah, I had a great time watching it. After that, we had the Don Callis family, so Kyle Fletcher, Josh Alexander, and Konosuke Takeshita. They defeated Paragon, which is Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly. This match was fine. It was very clear that this was just a piss break match between the two main event matches. Personally, I would have had Cole take the pin here to set up a future title defense, because yeah, I mean, he should be doing more defending of his championship on Collision rather than doing commentary. Personally, I feel like Fletcher should have been the one who pinned Cole. I know he pinned Kyle O'Reilly in the match, but even with Alexander and Takeshita, like if any of them had pinned Cole, it would have been better off, because then you're kind of setting up to a match where one of those guys could take the TNT title from Adam Cole, which I do feel like is the better off thing to do. You know, I thought that Adam Cole might bring some relevancy back to the TNT title, and he hasn't. But I also thought that about Daniel Garcia. I also thought that about Jack Perry, and I was wrong all 3 times. For whatever reason, Tony Khan just cannot seem to book the TNT title since Christian lost it. So yeah, I feel like putting it in the Don Callis family, a team and a group that is spread out throughout all of AEW television, whether it be Dynamite, pay-per-views, even probably Ring of Honor, and mostly Collision. I feel like that would be a good place for the TNT title to be, and it'll be defended, and of course it might even bring some prestige match to it if they are unifying the Continental and International Championships. But yeah, this match for the majority of the time is just this match for the majority was just fine, and yeah, it served a purpose of just being a match between main events where people could go get a drink and go have a piss. And finally, in the main event, Hangman Adam Page defeated Will Ospreay in the final of the Men's Owen Hart Foundation tournament to receive a championship match for the World Championship at All In what was a fantastic match. I don't know how much I can compliment this match, but I'm going to try and do it as much as possible. But yeah, these are the 2 best wrestlers in AEW bell to bell, in my opinion. Hangman, through the history of AEW, has been putting on great matches, and Ospreay is arguably the best wrestler in the world right now. There was no way that this match was not going to work. It was always going to be a spectacular match. It didn't disappoint, in my opinion. Definitely match of the night. The chemistry was great between these two, to say it's the first time they've ever met in the ring. If I was going to nitpick, I feel like near the end of the match they went for their finishes a bit too often. I know they went for them early as well. I feel like them avoiding each other's finishes helped to build the story of the match in the starting point. But yeah, by the end of it, they were kind of going for it a little bit too much, even if they weren't connecting or just setting up for it. But yeah, absolutely fantastic match from an overall aspect. Should definitely go check that one out if you have not seen it. And Hangman versus Moxley should be a fantastic match. We saw, I think it was either last year or the year before, when they had their match at Revolution, and they had their matches where Moxley knocked out Hangman and then Hangman knocked out Moxley, that these two can have a great match even if it's just a singles match. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing that one. Do I think Hangman's going to be the guy to take down the Death Riders? Maybe. As Ospreay said, he will have Hangman's back through the build to this, which I'm very interested to see how that goes down. I am a bit unsure about what Ospreay does come All In, assuming he will definitely be on the card, which he really should be, as being one of the forefronts of AEW television. But yeah, as I said, Hangman versus Moxley is a match I'm very much looking forward to. It has a completely new dynamic to it now. And yeah, I do hope Hangman gets the win here, but I personally would have preferred Ospreay getting the win to face Moxley. But we'll have to see if we get that down the road or something. But yeah, as I said, overall, absolutely match of the night and probably one of the match of the year candidates in my opinion. So those are my thoughts and opinions on AEW Double or Nothing 2025. Do put down in the comments below your thoughts on the show or anything else you would have liked to see during the show. And yeah, what you're looking forward to as far as All In goes. Also, we know we're getting Mercedes versus Storm. We know we're getting Hangman versus Moxley. Is there any other matches that you think will happen on the show? I myself am assuming that we're going to get Kenny Omega versus Okada for the Continental and International Championships to unify them, as of course the Continental Championship. I've heard rumours of like an Intercontinental Championship. I don't think that name will get over, I'm going to be honest with you. But yeah, no, as a whole show, I feel like they got rid of kind of the stuff that people would be less interested in kind of very early into the show, stuff like the stretcher match and the tag match with FTR and the Hurt Syndicate match. They kind of got rid of those very quickly. I didn't say got rid, that's pretty harsh, but they kind of got them done early, and obviously those were the matches that were clashing with Battleground as well. So yeah, I'm glad they kind of kept the big matches for the end when Battleground had more or less finished, especially with Anarchy in the Arena and Ospreay versus Hangman. But yes, do put down in the comments below your thoughts on the show. Do like the video if you enjoyed it. Do share if you, well, I don't know, it would appreciate it. It gets more people watching, I guess. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.